Hello, Montana, and hello, world, and hello, Terri Elander. Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Hislop from the Montana World Affairs Council, um, welcoming you to another Connect Montana. I'm having a little trouble with my Zoom at the moment, so I'm going to leave it in gallery view. Thank you very much for joining again today. We've had an extraordinary Arts International Week with our friends from Arts Missoula helping us. On Tuesday, we had internationally renowned artist Monty Dolak come and talk about his work and his travels. Then yesterday, we had Rafael Chacon from the Montana Museum of Art and Culture come and talk about his work on how art relates to international relations and a little bit on vexillology. That is the study of flags, for those of us who didn't know that. Very interesting. Today, we are very pleased to welcome Terri Elander. Terri began her association with the Missoula Community and Children's Theater in 1998 as a volunteer actor in a Missoula community theater production, and was hired in 1991 as the International and Public Relations Director for MCT Incorporated, with the primary responsibility of managing the overseas tours and serving as a member of the marketing team. While promoting MCT, Terri has traveled to numerous countries around the world and is deeply committed to the importance of cultural diplomacy. She served 3 terms on the board of directors for the Missoula Convention and Visitors Bureau, was a founding member of the Montana-Japan Friendship Club, and attended Gonzaga University and the University of Montana. She's a member of Bits and Pieces, a cabaret music comedy group, and was the host and co-producer of a morning television interview show on the ABC TV affiliate from 2001 to 2014. Terri, you are very welcome. Thanks for joining the show. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate your generosity and by inviting me. I'm incredibly honored and follow in some incredible footsteps with Monty and Raphael. I want to thank you and the Montana World Affairs Council with your mission of bringing the world of Montana and Montana to the world, and also to Arts Missoula and Tom Benson for their work to connect arts, culture, and community, which are both incredibly germane mission statements for today's topic and also as part of my personal story. So quick intro on me. Um, I'm from Montana. I'm a native of Montana with 5 siblings, lots of aunts and uncles, lots of cousins. And I say that because I always grew up feeling like I was connected to everybody. Everyone was related to me, right? Or else they were a friend of my cousin or so on. So it's just a sense of this larger family that is a part of my psyche. And so I seek that. I look for that. I crave it. It's my form of hunting to find all the ways in which we as a global community are connected. And so I'm uniquely suited to do the job that I do, which is to bring MCT to the world. It brings me great pleasure to do that. And so I want to say what that is I'm talking about for those who don't know about our touring program. First, I'll just say that basically the comments that I make about the scope of our work have to be qualified for pre-COVID because of so much, going to rest on a long intermission right now for us and many other companies around the world. But our touring program is a musical theater residency where we send 2 trained professional adult actor directors to a community with costumes, scenery, props, and all the materials needed to do a live musical theater production, except for the venue in which to do it, the children to be in it, and someone to play the music live, generally a piano. And so these are school-age children. Our team arrives and holds an audition, an open audition, where they will cast 50 to 60 children in a 2-hour period, and they start working on a show right away. All of our productions are original musical adaptations of classic tales, mostly Western European, Pinocchio, Jack and the Beanstalk, The Emperor's New Clothes, and so on. And so from chorus roles to group and up to title roles, these kids work really hard to memorize their scripts, learn music, choreography, blocking, which is the movements on and off stage. And all of this is under the guidance of the MCT team. And this hard work culminates in 2 live public performances of these musicals. All of this work happens in 5 days. So after this is all over, our team packs up everything and puts it in their truck, or in this case, schleps it to the airport to get on a plane to the next city or the next country. So that's the basis of what MCT does with our touring program. And you had asked me last week to consider the idea of the question, So what? Why does this matter? What does this have to do with anything other than what Jim Karen used to say? We put on plays. That's what we do. We have found over the years that that very effort of putting on plays has a huge uh, output of meeting agendas from all parts of the world, financial agendas from companies who are making money by selling tickets to all of that. But I just told you what we do, but I want to tell you why. And there are so many reasons, ranging from we serve a variety of clients, or we call them presenters. So many US military bases in the US and all around the world, international schools, arts councils, uh, communities in China that are private companies, private theaters, and so on. But what we do is bring a program that connects children to one another through the very essence of just doing a play together. Military families, many of you know, change their location. They're reassigned every 3 years or so, generally after the school year. So the kids will arrive in a new place, a new country in the summer. There's no school, they don't know anybody, but for the last 20 plus years, Missoula Children's Theater is coming with a show. So they have a chance to join a cast and be a part of something and have an instant cohort. So friends are made right away, which really helps with their, getting used to and comfortable in their new environment. Uh, a lot of kids that we see on tour, whether it's military or otherwise, are sometimes kids who are overlooked in their own community. They may be the class clown that's a little bit of a troublemaker, but has a gift for, a flair of their personality, or kids that are really quiet or don't read as well or just overlooked. And our teams come in, they don't know anything about these kids. They have no prejudice about them. So during the audition, they just look for some basic things: listening, paying attention, using expressive voice and body. And kids who don't normally aren't the star in their town get to shine because somebody they don't even know believed in them. And it heightens their self confidence, which brings me to our mission statement, which is the development of life skills in children through participation in the performing arts. So that's how we do it. We put on these plays. Some of this story I've been with a company, actually started in 1988 as a volunteer, but in my 29 years as a staff member, I have way too many stories, which is very difficult to drill down. But I'm going to try and just do a few that were really meaningful to me. In 2004, I had the opportunity to visit Germany, and I was at Mannheim Army Base, where we had a team doing Red Riding Hood. I showed up at the performance. There were only 19 kids in the show, and I was a little nervous that it wasn't going to be that strong because there weren't very many. In shows where we might have 12, 13 raccoons, there was one, just one. And I learned just before the show that one of the first waves of soldiers coming back from a deployment to Iraq, again, this was 2004, were due home that day. And at that point, I'm sure they were all men, and those dads were coming home. Their kids didn't know they were coming to see the show. So this is where I want to start to cry. It was really powerful, and it still is one of the very best shows I've ever seen from our company because of the heart, the community, and what it meant to those kids and to those dads. Then I find out the woman playing the piano is from Missoula, and she knows Victoria Larson, our HR director. So I mean, there's connections that just keep me going. We do this work for children like Kaoru Nakatake from Kumamoto City, Japan, who was in our shows for a couple of years there, was introduced to and auditioned for and accepted to Performing Arts Camp. She came for several years in a row. When she first arrived the first year, she spoke virtually no English, and that was a challenge going grocery shopping with her. But through the years, she worked on her English. She was very motivated. She kept doing MCT. I got a chance to see her a few years ago in Tokyo. She has a professional job. She's fluent, and she even wrote a letter to the governor of Kumamoto explaining how MCT was integral to her ability to learn English and become a confident adult. So, those are really just a few. And kids who are in Shanghai, China, or Indonesia or India at international schools, just really, they have fun. Nothing wrong with having fun, but through that they learn teamwork, responsibility, they make new friends, and as some people say, it's all good. And We have also worked with State Department, U.S. embassies in Micronesia and Bahrain, and hoping to do more through years. And to talk about cultural diplomacy, that term really came into my brain more probably about, I don't know, 15 years ago. Actually, 20 years ago. I was in the office one day and a woman walked in and she said, I understand you're going to be going to the UK. I live in London. How can I help? Can I help you with any logistics or hospitality? And started to describe who her father was. And I realized she was Anne Mansfield, Mike Mansfield's daughter. And so we connected. She helped us with some logistics and communications with people she knows there. We became good friends. And over time, we asked if she would give us the blessing of using the Mansfield name to put on some materials that we were putting together to talk about the Mansfield Project, which was really cultural diplomacy that we conduct in the U.S., of course, but overseas. MCT is really our people in our company. We're really proud to kind of carry the banner of Missoula, of Montana, of the United States, and the arts as a whole to places all over the world. We are able and willing to go anywhere where a community and organization has the tools and the ability to host the company. So we're very open to new locations, and we kind of can't get enough of it, and we long for the day we can get back out there. At this point, the military, we have created two programs to be done during shelter in place with families, and now the larger community called Playdate Create, where people can, under our guidance with some Zoom coaching and a lot of materials, produce a short version of our shows to kind of get them through this time where we can't come face to face and work with those kids in those locations. And so it's on a daily basis. There are people that write and thank us for what we've done and opened up their eyes. I mean, that's what happened to me as an adult. I auditioned for my first show, never having been in theater, and Don Kukla gave me a chance. He was the director of a musical, and I was given an incredible role. And that just really made me realize, oh, there are things that you can do that you may not know unless until somebody gives you an opportunity. And so it's really about, self-esteem and confidence that people carry with them through their entire lives. And we hear about it all the time. I wish I had more time to read letters and so on, but it's pretty spectacular to be a part of an organization like this. We are a nonprofit 501c3. Obviously, we've had a big blow with COVID, and we know we're not alone. So we don't wallow in that, but we're doing the best we can to kind of get through this time with some creative approaches and so on. So I want to talk about China for a moment, if I may. I understand I just have a few minutes just all for myself to talk. So, okay. In 6 years ago, a good friend in Missoula, Nancy Matthews, who is the ultimate cultural ambassador. If you don't know her, you need to know of her. Nancy introduced us to Li Hong from the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., who met with Michael McGill, and he described what it is that we do. And she said, I want to introduce you to a theater in Beijing who would be interested. So that theater was the China National Theater for Children. And that summer, Michael and I traveled to Beijing to attend a festival where they have, companies from around the world, but primarily Chinese companies performing children's theater. And it's a spectacle. I mean, if you haven't seen theater in China, it's a spectacle. And they wanted us to bring a show. And we said, okay, you have to understand, MCT is about the process. It's not a highly technical spectacle event, but it's something where, we explained what it is that we do. And they said, we want to learn more. So they sent two of their employees to Missoula, who were just these great people. We worked with them. They went back to China, and the summer of 2015, we sent one of our teams of two amazing young women to Beijing to produce The Princess and the Pea. Preparations had been made in advance, as we do in Kumamoto, where the instructors in China had cast the show and worked with the kids. But these children performed a show in English, not their native language. Most of them had never even been out of Beijing, let alone doing a show in English. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there, but it was extraordinary. Some people who were able to be there were Max Baucus, who was at the time was the U.S. ambassador to China, his wife Melody, and some top officials from the State Department and international offices. They were mobbed for selfies afterwards. It was a pretty incredible event, and lots of attention through the media there. And that began, or that was part of our journey of a number of collaborations with CNTC, the China National Theater for Children, which included a 3-month internship from one of their staff to come to Missoula. We became like family to Samang. And then more collaboration where some of our staff cast and worked with some high school boys to produce Chinese idiom stories in Mandarin because they're learning it in the high schools. And they took that to Beijing as part of a festival. So MCT was, really represented in a number of ways in Beijing. Then the fall of 2016, they sent about 10 kids from the Princess and the Pea show to Missoula, who recreated the show with Missoula kids put together for a truly international cast. They arrived just in time for homecoming, so they got to go to the parade, the Grizz game, they had s'mores, they just had a blast and fell in love with Missoula. And I know those memories are with those kids. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them at some point want to come to Montana to, study here, learn more about our beautiful city and our amazing state. Do you want me to stop for a moment?
Oh, I mean, you could go on forever, Terry, I think, and so could I, but maybe I'll just jump in quickly and say, I mean, just from my perspective, what an extraordinary story that is. I think most people here in Missoula and in Montana know the MCT. Here is something, that we, as a great community resource, as a great state resource, but maybe we don't know about all of the international work that you have been doing for so many years in connecting Montana to the world, but even beyond that, in your talking about cultural diplomacy, and nothing speaks cultural diplomacy more than schmores, of course. I mean, we know that. But first, I'd like to go to our friend Tom Benson from Arts Missoula, whom we're bringing this series of shows to in partnership. So, Tom, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Terry. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
And yeah, I want to echo what Chris said about the it always kind of floors me, the breadth of all that MCT does, and that really it first really hit home when many years ago I went to my first conference somewhere else in the country with a group of arts leaders. You probably heard me say this, Terry, but when I introduced myself, I distinctly remember, somebody from Vermont or something, and I said I was, in Missoula. The next words out of their mouth were, "Oh, Missoula Children's Theater." I know about that. They came to my town, and that has happened more times than any other response that gets from Missoula, and that immediately and forever tells me that the MCT is probably the best advertisement for Missoula that I know of, because it's in the name.
Right.
The city is part of the name of what you do, and you reach this broad audience. And I also I want to mention that sort of dovetail on what you said about Nancy Matthews and her work, particularly with the Chinese connection. And she was a recipient of our Cultural Ambassador Award this year for all the work, and included in that was what we did was what she did and how she paved the way for the Princess of the Pea. But you've mentioned this a couple of times. This is a great program, and the international tour has been very successful. But of course, you mentioned that we're in COVID right now, and that, of course, that has changed everything, particularly the performing arts and travel have just shut down. So, I asked this yesterday in a different context with Raphael, but at a certain point, we're going to get through this. And there will be another side, and we'll all come out on the other side. And I guess the question is, how do you see a post-COVID world with international travel? I mean, And I, you may not be able to answer that, and I'm sure you've been thinking about it. But is there some ways that you feel like when this is all over, we're going to have to kind of restructure our models somehow, or is it going to be the same model? I don't know. What are your thoughts on
All those, as people like to say in interviews, that's a great question, Tom.
that?
Questions. Yeah, we are definitely doing a lot of introspective thought about what it is that we do, how we do it. I mean, what a time to be in an industry, and I speak for all the theater out there, where you are face to face with people, singing, talking loudly, gesticulating all over the place in front of huge crowds of people. Not the easiest business to be in right now. But artists, I mean, people in general, but I sure know artists are resilient people. You've seen, through shelter in place, through all of this time, the last 8 months, you've seen more, concerts from home, people producing shows and Zoom performances, and all the things that are keeping us, even people at home watching movies and listening to music, those are all artists. I really, really hope that people remember how important the arts have been in their lives, but especially what it meant to them this year. I mean, I don't know how this would be like if we were, without Facebook, without Zoom, without all the internet entertainment that we have. It would be, if this had happened in the 60s or 70s, people would get through in different ways. But we've really been comforted by the arts going forward. For international, well, for instance, the military, the Department of Defense, have to go under the ruling of the SecDef, the Secretary of Defense. And months ago, they said, well, we can't allow people to travel onto the bases. Okay, well then we can't even go to those countries anyway at this point. If the military said it's clear, you've got a green light to come to Germany or Portugal or something, we can't even, as Americans, get there. So we have to wait it out. We have to hope and stay in touch with those communities that they will be able to welcome us back when it's time. And I know that that is the case. There's a lot of hunger out there for this human connection that we provide. The Navy in particular has been incredibly supportive, and we're told that the installations are like just raring to go as soon as they can have Missoula. And we're working with Air Force bases to send our program, this Playdate Create, which is a kit that they can create for a small fee, very reasonable fee, their own performance. Lackland Air Force Base in Texas live streamed their performance of Johnny Appleseed a couple weeks ago, and bless their hearts, I mean, that's a lot of work to put together when you aren't a theater professional. So I don't know what it's going to look like, Tom. We're definitely, the Playdate Create is a new program that came together in really short order with my amazing colleagues who are more, numerous to mention, all of them, but Matt Lurkey, our education director, and Joe Martinez, artistic director, and Jonna Michelson, marketing director. I mean, it was a huge effort. That's out the door. We want to roll that out to our non-military presenters very soon with a new title called Inventions. So that's coming. We do have actually a handful of communities around the U.S. this summer who said, no, we still want you to come. So we actually had, I think, 6 residencies around the country this summer where we normally would have 300 plus. So obviously a dip, to say the least. And some communities that are still holding in there for the fall and then after the first of the year. But during the school year, our overseas tour is almost solely during the summer because it's through youth services with military bases, and then some international schools. The 2 international schools that have been most present for us are both doing online learning this year. So they're not in school. They're not going to be doing a play. But I know they want us back when we can do that. And the State Department, we sent a program to Bahrain this summer as part of a festival with the local Bahrain arts organization and the U.S. Embassy, where people could do the shows. So we're hoping to go back there with real people next year. So yeah, I don't know. We're all consistently questioning and wondering what's going to happen, and it's really interesting to have to relinquish your power, relinquish your effect on the world in the ways we want to during this time. But we want to stay relative, stay connected. We're doing what we can to stay connected. And with schools during the school year, schools are major presenters around the U.S. and they're just getting rolling, and they're in, various amounts of various levels of disarray and uncertainty. So as they get their plans together, some of them may drop off and say, we're going to wait till next year. Some of them will say, no, we're good to go. Let's come. And of course, we're taking all the precautions and more that we need to, and doing all the right things to stay as safe as we can, even within our own space. So there's a lot to figure out. But artists definitely, have the creative minds to do it. But you got to eat your Wheaties and stay sane and stay healthy as best you can,
Yeah. Well, the two words that jump out are resiliency and creativity, which artists have a lot of, and,
right.
and humans have a lot of, and so
mm-hmm.
that's hopeful. But it's very tough. I feel for you right now, and the whole program.
Well, thank you.
It's tough. Thanks, Chris.
Well, thank you very much for that, Terri. We're nearing the end of our show, so I'm going to wrap up, but just by maybe echoing one of your last thoughts, which was, we're in the great unknown. I mean, that's a bit of a cliche these days, I suppose, but it's completely true. And that's why I think organizations like MCT and those organizations based in Western Montana, in Montana in general, ourselves included here at the Montana World Affairs Council, I think we share this thought that now more than ever, this idea of international engagement is critical in a time of a pandemic. And guests on this show over the past 5 months have repeatedly said the same thing. When asked, the so what question, why is this important now? And people say, well, look, we are all in this together now. We're all very uncertain. We all really don't know. And so therefore, now more than ever, we should be putting some more of our focus and more of our energy on these international connections. So thanks for that message. Terri, I go back to you for any last words or any last comments that you would have.
Thank you, Chris. Well, this is, as some people know, MCT's 50th anniversary. We hope to be around connecting through creativity for the next 50. And we do know that we will survive. We will change. We will be more lean. We will, maybe not everyone personally be more lean after quarantine, but we will make it. We just will look different. And people, we don't need the arts to survive, but we really, really count on them to thrive as humans, as people connecting and celebrating life. And the arts bring so much joy and celebration through music, dance, art, and all the ways that have been discussed through this program. I would ask that everyone be patient, kind, and really supportive to artists and communities that create art that they share with the world during this time. Stay in touch with us. You can send emails to me at telander@mctinc.org or visit our website for updates. Just ask everyone to stay well, be smart, mask up Montana, mask up world, and we hope to see people out there as soon as possible in our space, outside of Missoula, outside of the country. And I really, really appreciate and I'm very honored to be a part of this series. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Terri, it's been great having you. And of course, we wish all of our friends at MCT all the very best in getting through this. We know you will. And maybe I can end up echoing another one of your thoughts, which all of us have probably heard, but it bears repeating, which is if over the past, say, 5 or 6 months, you've benefited from reading a book, listening to music, or watching a movie, you have artists to thank for that. And so I think it's really reiterating your point, Terri, of the importance of the art, broadly speaking, in terms of our ability to thrive as a community, as individuals, and as a world. So thank you very much for that message. So this is wrapping up now our Arts International Week. If you missed Monty Dolak or Rafael Chacon, and if you want to share this show with others with Terri, it's on our YouTube channel. You just go and Google YouTube Montana World Affairs Council. If you have ideas for other series, let me know. I'm at info@montanaworldaffairs.org. And lastly, and always, I say, if this kind of thing interests you, if you believe, like I do, that engaging Montana's schools and communities in international issues is more important now than ever, please join us. Join us at the Montana World Affairs Council. You see over my shoulder our web address where you can become a member. We would love to have you. We have a huge range of programs. that are touching the lives of thousands of school kids across Montana, engaging them on critical international issues throughout the school year at a time when they really need this. So please, I'd love to have you along. Now, the next group of shows will go every other week. So next week we'll be off, but the week after we're going to have a series on either international healthcare or possibly on information, disinformation, and fake news. So until then, everybody, thank you so much. Terri, thank you, Tom, and thanks everybody for joining. Be well, have a good week.